front of you. Your line seems to be moving a little bit quicker than mine. Yeah, that might not happen. Never mind. Well, I mean, you can give me a chance. Damn it. Just kidding, I'm upset. I'm just a little upset.
Go ahead, I'm gonna try to keep the person behind me and with me. Hey, Kat, let's see if we can get in between these two here.
Like your axle just gave out and just sit there for 10 minutes. I'm like right here, bro. I'm right here.
Huh?
We might be able to do this.
Go ahead.
Hey, buddy. Riding some TJ ass right now. I feel so bad. God, she's awesome. She is fucking wicked cool, dude. Wow, that was fucking lucky, dude. Yeah, dude, we made it work. Damn right we did.
Kat, how far behind are you? Pick a line, any line? Pick a line, any line? There's I have a follower about 2 Jeeps behind me.
Okay.
See if I can grab her.
Let yours fill back up first.
I think you have the best line.
Oh, yeah, buddy. Yeah, well, that's one of all my stuff. God, I will wait for you. Alright. Go and do this together. It's gonna be an obnoxious asshole pulling out in front of you, though. Yeah!
hello. I am told you have the best line.
It's true, I do. Love your Jeep. It's awesome.
Thank you very much.
I love to see all the things. Do you have a CD player?
I do.
All right. I can get it off of my feet here.
That's a good fun.
You
The
want to
person
go down in the lowest gear.
down in lowest gear. The person behind me is following me, so I'm gonna pull up and just wait for her for
Yeah,
a minute.
that's fine. You can just pull right in front of that Jeep.
All right,
Get
sounds
right
good.
on. Yeah,
Thank you very
absolutely.
much.
Have fun.
Thank you.
Time and winds its way through woods, wind, and weather. At the state park on top, you'll see the home of the Mount Washington Observatory and the historic Summit Stage Office, which is where the world's highest winds were recorded in 1934. More about that later. This audio tour will be your information and entertainment guide as you travel on the oldest man-made attraction in the United States. Your driving time to the top will be approximately 25 minutes, and this tour will help you understand a lot more about the remarkable views and amazing things that have happened here since the road opened to the public in 1861. Now, before we get into all the storytelling on how this remarkable road came to be and some of the funny things done on it, we have some pretty important information to pass along. Among other wonders, you will be entering the Fragile Alpine Zone, home to many rare and unique forms of plants and flowers. There will be many opportunities to stop your car and walk around, so please take care to leave these special environments as you found them. It is only because others have been thoughtful in past generations that these small, endangered treasures are still here for us to enjoy. So if you watch your step, future generations might have the same opportunity. It is only through our continued stewardship that we can protect and preserve the resources that we all treasure. Now just imagine that this road opened to the public in 1861, and the scenes which are about to unfold before you have remained unchanged since then. Also unchanged is the need for safe driving. Now the road's remarkable safety record over the past century and a half is because drivers, whether in horse-drawn vehicles of the old days or the motor vehicles of this century, respect the basic rules of safety, which apply to the trip up and down Mount Washington. As you ascend the mountain and then descend after your visit to the summit, these driving tips will help maximize safety and minimize inconvenience. Please keep the following in mind as your journey continues. The auto road has two-way traffic coming and going at all times. Keep to your side of the road. Don't worry, it's wide enough for two cars to pass anywhere on the road. We urge you to drive up in low gear. This means less work for your engine and allows it to run cool. You should stay in low gear for your entire trip up and down the road. If ever there was a road that was designed for low gear, this is it. Mark Twain once said, "If you don't like the weather in New England, just wait a minute." He must have been thinking of Mount Washington because things can change quickly and dramatically around here. Depending on conditions, you should maintain a speed of approximately 15 to 20 miles an hour. Now, your actual speed will depend on traffic and prevailing weather conditions. If it seems like you're holding up cars behind you, please be considerate of others and allow them to pass. Avoid using your air conditioner, as this may cause the engine to overwork. There will be plenty of cool air to refresh you as you continue to gain elevation. If the vehicle does begin to run hot, turn on the heater. It may sound strange, but it will actually help cool the engine. Should you find yourself driving in a fog at any time while on the mountain, turn on your headlights for the sake of all oncoming traffic. And please remember, it's a New Hampshire state law that all persons under 18 years of age must wear a seatbelt. If either on the way up or down, for any reason you need assistance, flag down one of the white and green vans or road crew pickup trucks. Our drivers will be happy to help you in any way. Also, remember that cars coming down should yield the right of way to cars going up. Now, let's get to the storytelling about the place. The creation of our road to the sky all began back in 1853 when the New Hampshire legislature granted a charter to General David Maycomber to build the 8-mile road to the summit. It was a challenging task he set for himself, to say the least, but he had a vision. See, the White Mountains were beginning to gain a reputation as a destination resort, with grand hotels catering to wealthy travelers for the summer season. His path to the top of New England would surely be the high point of any visit to the North Country. Your presence here today confirms just how right he was. Anyway, one of the first of these grand hotels was the Glen House, which was located at the base area from which you began your climb. This hotel and 3 others burned to the ground over the years, around the turn of the century and after, though the base area is still referred to as the Glen, as it always has been. Seasons may change, but they always return, and the day will again surely come when travelers will find lodging in this most historic and remarkable of places. As you drive on through the hardwood forest, try to imagine what the early road builders faced. Dense trees and underbrush, sloping ridges, and immense boulders and ledges were at every turn. Not a particularly inviting place to excavate a road, but this is Mount Washington, and no adversity would be too great if it resulted in the conquest of this famed peak. One young woman who visited the Glen House in 1854 explored the work in progress and wrote an article for Harper's Weekly magazine. In it, she recounted her memories of the road as a work in progress.
We have all been walking in the lowering twilight on the road which is making its way up Mount Washington. Though nothing is impossible to modern science, it would seem impossible to vanquish the obstacles to the enterprise, the inevitable steepness of the ascent, the rocky precipices. We passed on through the debris of blasted rocks, stumps of uprooted trees, and heaps of stones, till we got far enough into the mountain to feel its stern solitude. Mary Langdon.
And when that was written in 1854, they were still 7 years from completion. Unfortunately, for General Maycomber, his financial backing ran out halfway up the mountain, so it ended up taking 2 companies. Years of backbreaking labor, blasting, logging, clearing, and grading to complete the task. During a 2-year delay after the first company had failed, it was questionable as to whether or not the project would ever be completed. But the lure of Mount Washington was too great to keep this road from reaching the top. It was particularly difficult to make any progress with natural obstacles such as the weather combined with the primitive technology of the era to slow things down. Since dynamite had not been invented yet, all the blasting was done with black powder, a dangerous and at times unstable explosive. In order to split the massive rock ledges which blocked the planned way, individual holes were hand drilled into solid rock and then filled with black powder, blown up and split apart one at a time. All the logging was done with axes, saws, and elbow grease. Teams of oxen and workhorses drew carts filled with gravel. All in all, it was a dirty, dangerous job, largely accomplished by immigrant labor working in a place not yet fit for man nor beast. But finally, on August 8th, 1861, it was done and done right. Many decades later, in a study completed with aerial surveys and the latest technology, the Army Corps of Engineers could find no improvement to the route as laid out in the middle of the last century. Today, this toll road is still privately owned and operated by the Mount Washington Summit Road Company, and with very little change of ownership, has remained a family business. As you continue upward, glimpses of mountain vistas begin to reveal themselves, but it wasn't always this way. In fact, around the turn of the century, logging barons had virtually clear-cut much of what is now the White Mountain National Forest. The decimation of these native forests created not only fire and erosion dangers, but created such an unsightly mess that the cause of conservation was taken up by the average citizen and politicians alike. As a result, the Weeks Act of 1911 established the White Mountain National Forest, among many others. These mountains remain protected today as a pristine reminder of the natural beauty of the wilderness. It is ironic, though, that it took the near destruction of everything that you see around you to motivate the effort to save it. Thankfully, what you see today is remarkably similar to what the first adventure seekers found in 1861. It was called the Carriage Road in those days, and there were as many as 25 mountain wagons and 120 horses in service each day of the season. These mountain wagons were specially designed and constructed for the carriage road by the Abbott Downing Company in Concord, New Hampshire. This company manufactured the famous Concord stagecoaches, which, aside from being shipped worldwide for use in commerce and transportation, were used in practically every Western movie ever made. The carriage road mountain wagons were pulled by 6 horses and seated as many as 12 passengers. A typical trip took 4 hours to get up, and though no one was in a rush in those days, passengers were at times asked to assist with one task. On windy days, those making the journey were asked to get out and collect rocks to add weight to the wagon so that it wouldn't tip over in the strong winds above treeline. Now, the ride down was another adventure in itself, taking a good 2 hours. The wheels on every trip down wore through a set of leather brakes as the horse, driver, and wagon fought gravity the whole way. Also, the carriage road stages weren't alone on the road by any means. Individual hotels had their own coaches for their guests, while other folks drove the family buckboard or surrey or rode on horseback. Then, as now, it was an active road that required the driver's full attention. As the word continued to spread, more and more people found their way to New Hampshire's North Country. New railroads continued to push their way past the lakes and into the hills, and while still a rural setting, the world had finally beaten its path to Mount Washington's door. Long before traveling tourists found Mount Washington, way back in the early 1600s, it was thought to be a place laden with riches. The quartz and the mica, which you will see glinting amidst the gray rock above treeline, was mistakenly considered to be diamonds and precious metals. Now, no doubt the disappointed early settler came to that realization after his long climb revealed only long views and no treasure. As you continue upward, you will begin to notice startling changes to the vegetation. Nearer to the bottom is a typical northeastern hardwood forest composed of maple, oak, birch, and beech trees. Further on, you'll see fewer hardwoods and more evergreens like balsam fir and spruce. And more significantly, these trees are diminishing greatly in size as the combination of wind, cold, and scarcity of proper soil create a difficult growing environment. Continuing upward, you are entering Krumholtz, or Crooked Wood Zone. In some cases, these stunted and beautifully twisted and gnarled trees with a height of no more than just 2 or 3 feet are more than 100 years old. These unique trees have adapted to survive in this often inhospitable location, as has a wide variety of wildlife that calls this mountain range home. Moose, black bear, and deer are among the larger species, while bobcat, beaver, porcupine, raccoons, foxes, and countless types of birds can be found on Mount Washington slopes. Even on the summit, mice, moles, shrews, foals have all adapted to survive in this extreme environment. As your journey takes you further up the mountainside, notice it has begun to get a bit cooler and the trees continue to get smaller as the road goes on to its height of more than a mile in the sky, 6,288 feet to be exact. The climate changes with eventually reaching the equivalent temperature one may find 600 miles north sheer hardwood forest of our region through the Krumholtz to an area more like that of Alaska and Greenland. In total, there are dozens of rare species of plants found in the alpine zone of the Presidential Range. Plants like the dwarf cinquefoil live only in the White Mountains and nowhere else in the planet, and are listed as federally protected species. Many of these unusual plants, though small, are very old, and some varieties don't even flower until they're 20 or more years old. Overall, many experts believe this mountains landscape that you're viewing to be more than 10,000 years in the making. So again, we ask, when leaving your vehicle to explore the mountainside, you're aware that the endless vistas are only one of the most obvious wonders. There is an amazing world just under your feet, which, if not cared for, could be lost forever. Never pick up or step on a flower. When you're out of your vehicle above tree line, please step only on the rocks. In this way, our fragile ecosystem will be something to marvel at for centuries to come. Scientific interest in Mount Washington has been ongoing for more than 200 years. In the last century, just the novelty of being here was enough to inspire whole books. One famous writer in the mid-1800s, T. Starr King, had this to say about the mountain's various climates.
I send you a greeting this morning from the cupola of New Hampshire. If perchance you are suffering from the heat when this missive reaches you, let your eyes cool themselves by reading that just outside the Tip-Top House, the mercury is at 34 degrees. The ride from the Glen was very easy. We rose indeed by climate as well as ridges. It was July at the base, late September on the ledge, and November at the apex. Reverend Thomas Starr.
Now, the Tip-Top House he refers to was built in 1853. You're going to see it in just a bit. It is the only original summit building that survived the Great Fire of 1908. The summit, as you'll see it today, has evolved greatly from how it all began so long ago. It's always been a hub of activity for travelers to the White Mountains. The summit community in the 1890s was a very busy place. It featured a large hotel, stage office, railroad station, and even had its own newspaper. Among the Clouds was the first and only newspaper ever to be published on a mountaintop. All visitors to the peak had their names published in its pages along with the local news and gossip. In fact, the latest daily editions used to make their way down after hours on the Cog railway track on a contraption known as a slide board, or more popularly known as Devil's Shingle. Real history was made again in 1899 when a little-known inventor named Freeland O. Stanley drove his locomobile up the road. He did it for publicity, hoping to build a name for his fledgling company. Stanley
ever be alone.